Okay, everyone. So, continuing with circles, we're going to call this one lesson 6 for our online lesson purposes. And today we're going to talk about specifically when tangents and chords intersect either inside or outside of a circle, and what that does to angle measures within circles and what that does to arc measures on the outsides of circles. So, here's a theorem. If a tangent and a chord intersect at a point on a circle, then the measure of each angle formed is 1/2 the measure of its intercepted arc. So over here to this red circle to the side here, we see this x we have a tangent and a chord that are intersecting on the tangent point of the circle, and it's forming this angle x here. Well, if I wanted to find this arc measure right here, then I would double that angle measure. So if this is 50 degrees inside where the tangent point is inside the circle, that means the arc measure would be 100 degrees. Okay, so whatever this angle measure is, you double it to get the outside arc. So here's some examples here. It says find the measure of the red angle or the arc. So on example 1 to the left, this green circle, they gave you the arc measure here is 130 degrees, but they want you to find the measure of angle 1, which is an angle measure. So if they give you the arc and you want to find the angle, well, you're just going to half of that arc measure. So you're going to say 130 divided by 2. So 130 divided by 2 is going to be 65 degrees. You can check it. 65 times 2 is 130 degrees. All right. So on the second problem over here, you have this angle that's at a tangent point at 125 degrees, and they want you to find this red arc. Well, if they give you the angle and you want to find the arc, then what you have to do is double the angle. So it's going to be 2 times 125 degrees, which is going to be 250 degrees for the arc. So if they give you the arc and you want the angle, you divide by 2. If they give you the angle and you want the arc, you double it, multiply by 2. All right, so there are two ways that chords and tangents can intersect around a circle. They either can intersect inside a circle or outside a circle. Now, this is going to sound confusing, but it's actually pretty simple. If two chords intersect inside a circle, then the measure of each angle is 1/2 of the sum of the measures of the arcs intercepted by the angle and its vertical angle. So I've kind of color coded this picture right here. So angle 1 here is an inscribed angle inside the circle. BD is a chord and AC is a chord, and they intersect inside the circle. Okay, they cross inside the circle, forming all those 4 angles. Well, angle 1 intercepts this arc DC. And its vertical angle over here, we don't know its name, but it intercepts this arc AB. So if I want to find the measure of angle 1, what I will do, see it's over here, is I will take 1/2 of the sum of the measure of arc DC and the measure of arc AB added together. So you add the two outside arcs together and you take half of it, and it will tell you the measure of that inside angle. Okay, so likewise, for angle 2, those are color coded in blue. So let me get my blue pen so I can go over it. So for BC right here, so 2 intercepts, oops, I erased it, arc BC right here, and its vertical angle intercepts AD over here. So if I want to find the measure of angle 2 around that circle, then I take 1/2 of the sum of arc BC plus the measure of arc AD. So I would add BC's measure plus AD's measure, add them together, and then take half of that. Okay, so just a little tidbit of information. This highlighted box is kind of your summary. If you intersect inside, you're going to add. Outside, you're going to subtract, and I'm going to show you why. The second theorem says if a tangent and a secant of two tangents or two secant lines intersect outside of a circle, then the measure of the angle formed is 1/2 of the difference. So if they intersect inside, we're going to add those two arcs. If they intersect outside, we're going to subtract our two arcs. And then we're still going to take a half of that measure. So here's two things that can happen. This first example has two tangents. Okay, none of the lines go through the circle and they connect and form angle 1 right there. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this arc right here. We call that the big arc. Okay, PQR. And then you're going to subtract the little arc around the outside of the circle. So, and then you're going to take half of that. So I'm going to call it the big arc. I like to say big arc minus the little arc. And then you take half of it to find the measure of your angle 1. Okay? Well, those are two tangent lines. Sometimes you can have two tangents. Sometimes you can have two secants. Sometimes you can have a secant and a tangent. So this example right here, the second example, is two secants because they go through the circle. They're not just touching at one point, they're touching at 2 points. So angle 2 right here, you're going to take the measure of this arc, which is the bigger arc, and subtract the little arc right here, AC, and then take half of that. So again, it's still, oops, sorry y'all. It's still big arc minus the little arc. And you're going to subtract because they touch each other. The angle is outside the circle. So again, right here, very important. If the angle formed is inside the circle, you add and take a half. If the angle formed is outside the circle, you're going to subtract and take a half. So this makes a whole lot more sense when we work some problems. Let me get my red pen back out. So this one is just a simple example. Find the value of x. Well, x is the angle measure that is formed inside the circle of those two intersecting lines. Okay, so it's inside the circle. So if it's formed inside the circle, we add. Okay, so x is going to be 1/2 times the two arc measures added together. So we're going to add 156 plus 130 and take half of that. So 130 plus 156 and then take half. So order of operations, we multiply, or we do parentheses before we multiply. So 130 plus 156 is 286. And remember that multiplying times a half is the same thing as dividing by 2. So you just take 286 and divide it by 2. So x is going to be an angle measure that is 143 degrees. Okay, so again, we added the two arc measures formed by that angle and its vertical angle, and we added those together and we took half. So if they're intersecting inside the circle, we add and take half of that. All right, here's another one. All right, see, my angle measure formed is outside the circle. It looks like CD is a secant, or is a tangent line, and BA is a secant line. Doesn't matter what kind of lines they are. If they intersect inside the circle, you add. Outside, they subtract. So this angle is formed outside the circle. So we're going to subtract and take a half. Okay, so x is going to be 1/2, remember, of the big arc minus the little arc. So our big arc in my circle, is this the one further away from your angle measure, is going to be 178 minus the little one is right there, 76. So you're going to say 178 minus 76, and you get 102. So x is going to be half of 102, which is 102 divided by 2, which is 51 degrees. Okay? So if you want to find an angle measure that's outside the circle, you subtract the two arcs, the big one minus the little one, and then take half of that number. All right, so this one's a little bit different. First of all, we're finding y, which is not an angle measure. It's actually an arc measure, okay? So here is this arc measure, and here's the other mark measure. Well, they gave us this 102 degrees, but that is not our angle measure that we need to base this off of. Okay, so to find that angle measure that we base this off of, notice that it makes a linear pair with that 102 degree angle. So we're going to say 180 minus 102, 180 minus 102 is 78. So this is a 78 degree angle. So that's the angle measure we're going to use. So remember, it's angle measure equals 1/2. These are intersecting inside, so we're going to add. So remember, it's angle measure equals 1/2 of the two arc measures. Okay, so angle measure goes first. So again, we're not finding an angle measure. This time we're finding an arc measure. And one of my arcs is y, because I don't know that one, plus my other arc measure is 95. Okay, so the angle measure goes to the left since we know it. Now here's a little trick. To solve this equation, yes, we can multiply through by 1/2, but then we're going to have a lot of fractions going on. So a little trick, instead of multiplying through and distributing in 1/2, get rid of your fraction by multiplying both sides by its reciprocal. Well, the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2. So if I multiply both sides by 2, 2 times 1/2 is 1, so that cancels out. So make sure you multiply the left side by 2, though. So 78 times 2 is 156 equals y plus 95. And that equation looks so much simpler. So to get rid of your 1/2, if you're solving an equation with these, and you will be doing that, just multiply both sides by 2, and that gets rid of your fraction. All right, so now all we have to do to solve for y is subtract our 95. So 156, whoops, minus 95 is 61. So that arc measure is 61 degrees. And you can check it. 61 plus 95 is 156 times 2. I'm sorry, divided by 2, because it was half of it. 156 divided by 2 is 78. All right, let's do this other one. All right, this time they give me the angle measure again, which is 30 degrees. And that angle is formed outside the circle. So remember, if it's formed outside the circle, we subtract. So it's angle measure equals 1/2 of big arc minus little arc, where our big arc this time is A. So A minus our little arc is 44 degrees. So that's how we set it up. Angle measure equals 1/2 of big arc minus little arc. See, this is our big arc, this is our little arc, 30 is our angle measure. All right, so we're going to do our trick again. We're not going to distribute 1/2. We are going to get rid of the 1/2 by multiplying both sides by 2. Okay, so 2 times 1/2 is 1, and that cancels. 2 times 30 on the left is 60. So 60 equals A minus 44. And then we're going to add 44 to both sides to get A by itself. And that's going to be 104 degrees equals A. Oops, that's not a degree mark. Sorry. All right, and that is the big arc. And again, you can check it by saying 104 minus 44, and then take 1/2 of that. You should get 30. All right, so these next 3 problems I'm going to do with you, I think I have 3, are actually from the worksheets. So you can pause right now and get out your worksheet. I'm going to do these with you guys to help you get a head start. So that means everybody can at least do this and copy from the video, right? So we're going to do these together, and that way you can get something accomplished, and that kind of just lets you see how the worksheet goes and make sure we know what we're doing And I'm just trying to help you guys out a little bit, okay? So these next problems are from the worksheet. So again, pause your video, get out a piece of paper. If you're working it on notebook paper, get your worksheet. And I'm going to work these with you guys to kind of start you off. All right. So, says to find the measure of, Miss Scrollsong said, of SUM. Well, SUM is this angle measure right there. And all I know about that is that it's 4x plus 10. Okay, so I have got to solve for x so that I can find what 4x plus 10 is. And so we're going to use our little formula. And our little formula said, this is an angle that's outside the circle. Those two lines connect outside the circle to make that angle. So remember, outside, we subtract. So outside, we're going to subtract. So we're going to say the angle measure, which is 4x plus 10, equals 1/2. And we're going to subtract the big arc minus the little arc. Big arc is the 16x plus 10 minus the little arc, which is 70. Okay, well, we got a lot going on right here. First of all, I'm looking in the parentheses and I see like terms right there. So I want to get rid of those or combine those like terms. So I'm going to keep it 4x plus 10 equals 1/2 of 16x minus 60. All right, so that's somewhat simplified. All right, now I don't have any more like terms, so I'm going to keep going. I'm going to use my trick to get rid of the 1/2. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. Now, when I come over here to the left to multiply by 2, I got to multiply that whole side by 2. So I'm going to have to distribute a 2, which beats distributing a half. This problem, it probably wouldn't have made a difference because those are all even numbers over there. So if you want to distribute a half, that's fine. But I'm going to do that by multiplying both sides by 2. Just make sure you do that whole side by 2. Okay, not just the 4x. So 2 times 4x is 8x. And 2 times 10 is 20. Equals 16x minus 60. All right, now we're getting somewhere. That equation looks a whole lot simpler now. I'm going to get my x's together. Subtract 8x. So 20 equals 8x minus 60. I'm going to add 60 on both sides. 80 equals 8x. That's nice. Divide by 8 and 10 equals x. Yay. Now I'm not done because I want to find the measure of angle SUM. And SUM is 4x plus 10 degrees. And now I know that x is 10. So 4 times 10 plus 10 degrees is going to be 40 plus 10, which is going to be 50 degrees. So my final answer is 50 degrees. And you could check that by plugging in 10 for all your x's and plugging them back into the formula. So that is number 16 on your worksheet. So everybody should be able to do that problem now because I just did it for you, and there's all the work for it. All right, let's do another couple of them. This one's number 13. So I just kind of skipped around on your worksheet and tried to find one of each type of problem. So this one's number 13. And notice that those lines are intersecting inside the circle. And we know that if they intersect inside the circle, we're going to add with our formula. Okay, well, here's the angle measure. And remember, it's angle measure. So 43x minus 1 equals 1/2. And it's going to be arc plus arc. So 60 plus 55x. So angle measure equals 1/2 of arc plus arc. And at the end, they want us to find the measure of arc KL, and I will focus on that after I get my x value. All right, so I don't have any like terms I need to combine on this one. A little bit simpler. So first thing I want to do is get rid of that 1/2 by multiplying both sides by 2. Make sure you multiply that whole side over there by 2, so you're going to distribute. So the 1/2 and the 2 cancel on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, I need to distribute. 2 times 43x is 86x. And 2 times -1 is -2, equals 60 plus 55x. Well, that got rid of all of my parentheses, making it look a little less complicated. So I'm going to subtract 55x on both sides. And 86x minus 55x is 31x. Minus 2 equals 60. Add my 2 on both sides. 31x equals 62. Divide 62 by 31. I'm getting x equals 2. All right, I've got x, but I still have to find the measure of KL. And there's KL right there. So the measure of arc KL is 55x, and I just said x was 2. So 55 times 2 is 110 degrees. So that's my final answer on number 13 on the worksheet, and there is all of my work. So remember, if the lines cross inside the circle, you add them. So that's how you do number 13. All right, now there's one more type of problem that is a little bit different, and it goes back to the very beginning of the lesson. So here's number 14, and this one demonstrates that. So it says find the measure of arc DE, which is this arc right there. And right now, what we know about arc DE is that it's 51x plus 5. So we learned at the beginning of the lesson, if we have a secant and a tangent that intersect on the circle, we double that angle to get the arc. So all we have to do on this one is say 2 times 26x plus 1 equals the arc, which is 51x plus 5. So to me, these are a little bit simpler setup. So you just double the angle at the bottom, and that gets you equal to the arc. And then you just solve the equation. 2 times 26 is 52. So 52x plus 2 when you distribute equals 51x plus 5. And then I'm going to subtract 51x on both sides. Look how nice that is. 52 minus 51 is just 1x plus 2 equals 5. I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides, and x equals 3. But it said to find the measure of arc DE, which is 51x plus 5. Measure of arc DE. So it's going to be 51 times my x is 3 plus 5. So 51 times 3 is 153 degrees plus 5 is 158 degrees. So that helps you with number 14. So if you have them intersecting like that and the angle sits on the edge of the circle, remember you double the angle and set that equal to the arc measure, and then solve for x and plug in whatever you need to do. So hopefully me working those problems from the worksheet helped you guys. I was trying to get you a head start and be as helpful as possible. Shoot me an email or a message if you need help with anything. I miss you guys. I hope you're having a good day. See ya.